It's time to get the latest scoops on what's happening with the New York Jets with a very special guest coming up next right here on The Boy Green Show. Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Aaron Rodgers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever seen.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Yes, sir. Paul Eston Jr. here, a.k.a. Boy Green of the New York Jets, digital reporter for Evie.com. Let's waste no more time. Let's bring him on for the very first time on this program. ESPN NFL Insider Jeremy Fowler, live from the mothership. Let's bring him in. Jeremy, gosh darn Fowler, baby. What's up, Jeremy?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate the intro.
I'm fired up, man. So let's get into it. Let's get the latest. For those who haven't, you and Dan Graziano, I love when you guys do these joint pieces. You dump all your guts on the table, and we try to see what's going on with the latest here. Dalvin Cook. That's what Jets people are trying to wonder about. What the heck is going on? How was the visit, Jeremy, with Dalvin coming up to here to New York? Did it go well?
Yeah, from all accounts that I've heard, it did go well. He was there till late afternoon, early evening. I think he probably left around 4:30, from what I understand, and then he's now back in South Florida, and they'll go from there. There's certainly mutual interest. That was the case when he went there. That continues to be the case, as far as I'm told. But there's several teams in the mix. I would say definitely the whole AFC East, outside of maybe Buffalo. Is in the mix here, and then I think you have some others too. I would be shocked if he does not sign with an AFC team. I'd be probably similarly surprised if he doesn't sign with an AFC East team because he wants to play his brother twice a year. I do think that's a factor. So, but everybody's kind of playing it cool, and nobody wants to get into a bidding war. So it's just been, I would say, there's a bit of a lull in the action at the moment, but it could heat up at any time.
Jeremy, come on, you got to be honest with me. Jet fans have been burned before, specifically, obviously, in the Jets-Dolphins thing with the Tyreek Hill thing. Is he just using the Jets as some sort of trying to get a little bit more moolah out of Miami? Is that what's happening here?
I don't think so. I mean, look, there's always games that can be played to get the best contract he can, but I don't think it was about that, really. From what I was told, he's already got a good relationship with Aaron Rodgers. They go way back, like they're considered friends. And so he wanted to make sure that he could vibe with the coaching staff, make sure they want to run the ball effectively. He wants to go to a place where that's going to be utilized. He felt like in Minnesota that really wasn't the case as much as probably he would have liked last year. And they wanted to make sure that shoulder was healthy. That was a big part of it, to get his surgically repaired shoulder checked out and undergo a physical. So certainly the money is a big part of it. I think he has a number, and I don't know yet if anybody has hit it, but I think if they had hit it, it'd be done. But there's certainly some strong offers on the table from what I understand. So it's just got to shake out.
What about the physical? You mentioned it, and Robert Saleh even said it as the meeting was being set up that, we want to get our hands on him from that perspective. From what you understand, did he pass that physical? He had the shoulder surgery in February. Did the Jets like what they saw?
I haven't heard anything directly on that, but I know before it was released by the Vikings, he did pass his physical with them. So I assume everything's good. He essentially feels like he was playing on one shoulder last year. So now he feels like he's got two. He feels like he can be even more effective. And so, that should prolong his career. And he's only 27, unless he turned 28 recently. He's still a pretty young guy. So he feels pretty spry.
Again, we're speaking with Jeremy friggin' Fowler here, baby. ESPN NFL Insider here on the program. I freaking love seeing Jeremy, so it's an absolute honor to have you here on the show, Jeremy. So getting back to it here, what is it ultimately? Is it purely financial for Dalvin? He's kind of seemingly, flopped around with saying a lot of different things, but ultimately it seems like he does want some level of respect with the money, especially considering the running back market.
Yeah, he probably said it well in that last part. I mean, respect with the money. This is a guy that's had a big contract and is still young, that's coming off 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So, it's hard for those guys to take a low amount. He's made no secret that playing in Miami is of interest to him, so I don't think it's all about the money. The Jets, he had to make sure that they're a fit, and so it's part of the equation and probably a big part, but not all of it.
A concern from the outside perspective was like, man, the Jets have Brees Hall here, who made honorable mention in the famous Jeremy Fowler ESPN Top 10 list, which we enjoy every year. He made honorable mention there. Brees Hall's a really young, talented back. Of course, he's coming off a torn ACL. Would there be any hesitation from Dalvin from that standpoint, that if he came to the Jets, sure, he would be a guy, but I don't know about the guy unquestioned?
Yeah, I don't think he has to go to a place. I can't speak for him, but my understanding is he doesn't have to go to a place where he's just number 1, 2, and 3 on the option chart, and he has to get all the rushes. He's comfortable going to an offense that's good and has weapons all over the field. I think he just wants to be utilized, and so the Jets, from their standpoint, it just gives Brees Hall a little more time. Anytime a running back's coming off an ACL, the early part of the year is a bit of an adjustment most of the time. Not in all cases, but certainly it can be. Denver's going through that with Javonte Williams. Even though he's trending in the right direction, I still think that Denver will sign back at some point. So you just, you need 2 good ones. It's just the way it is. I mean, the Patriots are looking for a second one to pair with Ramondre Stevenson right now. So, Dolphins, part of their issue is they feel like they would love to have Dalvin Cook, but they feel like he's a luxury in a sense because they have 3 or 4 backs, and they can all play. So now you bring a guy like Cook in there, he can take you over the top. Possibly to prime contention. So that's something they have to consider as well.
Jeremy, did you get a sense that if the Jets somehow miss out on the Dalvin Cook sweepstakes, that they would then pivot to another talented back, Kareem Hunt, Zeke, a lot of guys are out there. If they missed out there, would they pivot? Because it doesn't seem like a slam dunk. They heavily pursued OBJ, and then when they didn't get him, they went, okay, I guess we'll stick with what they got, because they didn't pivot in a different direction. They stood pat. Is that the same concept there at running back?
Yeah, that's a good point on Beckham. I was interested in that because they were in it to the very, very end. I thought at one point the Jets were going to get him. And so when they didn't, I was like, oh, yeah, they'll go, but then they'll probably maybe go after Hopkins then. They need a guy, obviously, because they're chasing Beckham, but they really didn't. So that's interesting to me. Maybe Beckham they felt like was a special case or would have a good rapport with Rodgers. I think how a guy fits with Rodgers is important. The Cook and Rodgers dynamic, like they do have a relationship, so that helps. Not that they just want to cater to Aaron, but, I think that could be a factor. He's used to in Green Bay having 2 really good ones, right, with A.J. Dillon.
That's for sure.
And Aaron Jones. So certainly they could try to replicate that formula. And it's a good question. It really depends on the market because you got 5 or 6 good ones and they're all waiting. Like, I think New England would love to sign Zeke Elliott, but not at his money, So it's just all these teams are waiting it out, and it's just going to take one guy signing to sort of create the domino fall.
Aaron Rodgers takes this historic pay cut, something unlike anything we've ever seen really in football history. And one of the reasons he said he did it was to provide the Jets flexibility to add somebody. He mentioned the trade deadline in a couple of spots. Who are some possibilities? Who I don't know if he had specific names when he made this move, but are there names that make sense for the Jets to where with this new financial flexibility, they could make something happen either before the season or maybe even during it?
That's a good question. You're prompting me to want to look at my trade candidates list because, if I think they're at one point I thought maybe pass rusher. That's why I thought of Daniil Hunter. They got a deal done with Minnesota, but they had at least looked into the trade possibilities with him. But I get the sense the Jets like their young guys there, so they don't need to flex. Chase Young's a name that's been out there for a while. I think it really would depend on injury, maybe, just to have that flexibility. Jonah Williams at a fairly big salary, but he's still out there with Cincinnati. Doesn't seem to be in their long-term plans. Wasn't happy about moving the right tackle, so they wanted to get a guy there. Could be an option. I don't know. There's not a lot out there. I would say the trade market is slow right now because of teams just still digging into camp. Once they either get a major injury or realize they don't like their players, or they get into October and realize they don't like some of their players, then maybe they make a move. A lot of pass rushers still out there, though. If the Jets wanted to sign one, I just don't get the sense that they're going to be major players there.
Did you mention that they kicked the tires on Danielle Hunter? If so, what did that kind of look like? That's interesting to me.
Oh, I just thought like the connection there that I kicked the tires. I don't even know if it went that far.
Sure. Okay.
I just think Minnesota was gauging trade interest.
Yeah. No, that
So
makes sense.
maybe it's a scenario where they called the Jets. I'm actually not 100% certain on that, but he would have made some sense to me if they wanted a guy like that.
Some people have said that, during the season, once we kind of get in because of the trade deadline, that if a team stinks, that they have a really good player that, we might as well get something for this guy
Yeah.
than losing him for nothing. I've heard Mike Evans floated out there as a possibility in the
Yeah.
Twitter streets, so to speak. As an example, would something of that nature potentially cook up where a bad team just gets rid of a player, gets rid of is a poor term, but, kind of allows a
Yeah.
player potentially to move in that realm?
It could. Mike Evans is an interesting name. I was just in Tampa though. He really wants to re-sign with the Bucks and retire in Tampa. I think they'll get something done. He's still only 29, turns 30 in August. But yeah, that would be an interesting name. But he's a big money guy. You would have to pay him to acquire him, I think, most likely. So I don't know. I think the Jets are actually showing some restraint, recently with Beckham and then with Dalvin Cook, and it's probably going to serve them well. Most people thought the Jets would close the deal with Dalvin because that's typically what they do. Like, oh, we'll just give a player what he wants, and
Sure.
Teams will feel like or agents or teams will feel like they're taking advantage of the Jets. But I don't think that was the case in this situation.
This one's a weird one. I don't even know if there's any legitimacy to this whatsoever. So, Jeremy, as one of the best in the friggin' business, you could slap this down right now. But I've heard people throw out Aaron Donald because the Rams threw away Jalen Ramsey. The team's kind of in a weird middle stage. Like a guy like Donald, like you don't want to see him wasting away potentially on a bad team. Whether it's the Jets or anyone, is that real or is that completely BS?
That's a huge number, though. I haven't heard much movement on Aaron Donald. I believe he has a no trade clause. I'd have to look at that. It just all that would be required to get a guy like that, it would take a lot. When you have Quinn and Williams, you don't really need to stretch in that area.
Of course.
So there'll be some interesting names. Like there'll be a team that has a surplus at a certain position. What is that Denver receiver, but they just had 2 injuries.
Yeah.
So they could actually be buyers now in that market. So if you need an extra receiver, maybe like a Hunter Renfrow, but it seems like the vibes between him and the Raiders are better than they were. But I know a lot of teams believed that they were shopping him at one point. But it seems that they've weathered the tide there. So, if you need like a good slot guy, maybe that's one to look into.
All right, let's get a couple more in here with Jeremy before we get you out of here. Makai Beckton, he's interesting because he was asked today at his media availability here as we're doing the show on August 1st, that Makai Beckton was asked, would you ask for a trade if you're not a starter by week 1? And he said, that's in the future. So he didn't want to answer the question, but he also kind of answered it without answering it. Is there anything there? Could the Jets get anything there if they decide to make that move?
Certainly, I think he'd have some value, especially if he plays well for 6 to 8 weeks, which he expects to do. I mean, he's in better shape. He knows that the chips are down a little bit after all the injuries and some of the things that have gone on in his NFL career. So, it's now time to make some money, for him in a contract year. So, from all that I've heard, he's highly motivated to do that. And, the numbers game still plays in his favor. I think he can still earn the job there, one of the 2 tackle jobs. But really, can he stay healthy? That's the biggest question. I do think he would have a market, though. I really do, because after his first year, he was widely considered a top 8 offensive tackle in the entire league. When I talked to teams, they were really, really high on him. So I think that's still there somewhere. But you know how it goes with these players. They want to go somewhere where they feel wanted. And if he feels like that's no longer the case, maybe he wants to get traded.
Yeah, that was featured, as a matter of fact, in your ESPN top 10 list. I remember the quote, a Hall of Fame trait, something of that nature, when he initially clicked it. And I was like, whoa. And it didn't, again, he was a rare offensive lineman that seemed to have those splash plays, SportsCenter top 10, that you normally don't see from that perspective. Ending here on a couple of your top 10 list that included honorable mention, Garrett Wilson. How good can the kid be in your mind?
Yeah, he came in 11th in the voting for wide receiver, which is really impressive considering you have 25 or 30 guys that are great.
Right.
And so, it would shock me if he wasn't in the top 10 next year. He's even got a little Justin Jefferson to his game, kind of lanky and can run past you with kind of like a Gumby style, long and stretchy. So he's going to be really good. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
And just final nugget on that. What do you believe statistically? What could he accomplish? Jet players in fantasy and that sort of thing doesn't normally happen. What could we see with Garrett?
Well, I mean, if it's really going to depend on his chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, but it sounds like that's already good, So if Rodgers finds a guy that he likes and he trusts, he's going to feed him the ball. He's shown that over time. So if that's the case, I don't see why his target share won't be, in sort of the top 10 to 12 in the league, which would inherently get him numbers, because he's talented enough to finish the plays. So I don't know. I'd go. What did he finish with last year? 1,100.
1,100. Yeah.
So I mean, now he's got a quarterback. So I'll go.
Yeah.
I'll go 14. I'll go 1,400.
All right, beautiful. Jeremy, as we're letting you out of here, are there any juicy deets? Is there anything you're hearing from anybody on Jets that you could just spill on the table? A sexy quote, a nugget of some sort? Is there anything in there? Anything to share?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Going through the roster right now.
Sure.
Nothing off the top of my head. I don't want to leave you hanging, though.
Yeah, come on, Jeremy. Come on, we're close. We're friends. Come on, pal. I'm sorry, man. Because we talked about everything. We hit it all. Yeah, that's right. Because, again, I was such a great interviewer. Jeremy, stop flattering me. I appreciate that. Well, brother, thank you.
After we get off, I'm sure. So.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you could just you could hit me up on the side. We'll make sure we get that to the great people. Jeremy, thank you so much. You do wonderful work for the mothership and everywhere else. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Yep, there he is. Jeremy Fowler, ESPN NFL Insider. Thanks, everybody. Take care.